that happen in any market.
Question number 6, Eugenie Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, quote, does he stand by his statement, quote, I am not going to do something silly with the Department of Conservation estate, end quote.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes.
Eugenie Sage.
Would allowing foreign-owned Bathurst Resources Limited to dig up and destroy around 200 hectares of distinctive habitats on conservation land on the Denniston Plateau to mine coal be, quote, doing something silly, end quote, with our conservation land?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think the member is characterising incorrectly what might happen on the Denniston Plateau. The company in question has resource consent, as I understand it, from historical consent that's there, but an access agreement may be required, and if that is required, and the Minister of Conservation grants that, then that'll be publicly notified. As part of all of that process, the company would be expected to follow the high standards for mining on conservation land.
Eugenie Sage.
Speaker. Well, if the Prime Minister has said that access application will be publicly notified, why has he allowed the Minister of Conservation to back down on her promise made in 2010, and I quote, that significant applications to mine on public land should be publicly notified? The Minister has said that the Bathurst Resources application will not be publicly notified.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister isn't backing down from her assurances. That was made as part of the Schedule 4 stocktake process in July 2010. The proposed changes are now being considered as part of the wider review of the Crown Minerals Act, and be my expectation once that law is passed that will be exactly the case when there is mining activity undertaken on the conservation estate that will be publicly notified. But as I said to the member earlier, in the case of Bathurst Resources and their consent for the Denniston Plateau, that's a historical consent that's already been granted.
Eugenie Sage.
Does he accept that his plans to officiate at the opening of Bathurst Resources' new head office this evening may send a message that the company's access application to the Department of Conservation, which has not yet been granted, should be granted?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no. What it does show is that as Prime Minister of New Zealand, I support the creation of jobs in New Zealand. I am supportive of those that want to undertake mining and exploration activity in New Zealand, providing they do it in a way which balances both the economic advantages and the environmental responsibilities that come with that. And in my opinion, if I didn't go and visit companies who either have resource consent applications pending or access consents pending, I wouldn't be visiting many companies in New Zealand.
Eugenie Sage.
Supplementary. So is it commonplace for the Prime Minister to officiate at events of companies that have controversial applications that are before the courts and before another minister in his government?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's the member's characterisation that's controversial. I don't see it as controversial. I do officiate at lots of companies around New Zealand as I support the economic development of New Zealand. It's part of my ministerial activities, which are publicly listed each and every week. I personally, for one, will be proud to be at the Bathurst Resources Company tonight as they look to expand their economic activities in New Zealand, and I'll leave the member to be standing out front in the rain, protesting as the Greens always do.
Eugenie Sage.
Supplementary. So how many more mining companies will the Prime Minister encourage to mine conservation land before the government amends the Crown Minerals Act and acts on its July 2010 promise to allow significant applications to mine on conservation land to be publicly notified?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, it would help if the member paid attention in question time. So, as I've said all the way through, there was a historical consent. Point of order.
Order. Dr. Russell Norman,
point of order, Mr. Speaker. The question was not a gratuitous attack on the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister attacked the questioner for no particular reason by saying that she wasn't listening. She was clearly listening. She was trying to engage in the debate.
Order. The members shouldn't be commenting on a point of order. I think the member's characterisation of his colleague's question is perhaps a little overly pure, because I certainly heard some innuendo in the question put to the Prime Minister. I mean, the member saw me where I believed a member had asked a a very straight question. I pulled the Minister up when he started to comment on what the member should do. On this occasion, I felt the question did contain innuendo. And while I wouldn't want the Prime Minister to go any longer in that track, down that track, I think members need to try and avoid, if they don't wish to get that kind of response from a Minister, to put innuendo into a question. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, let me spell it out again. As part of the Schedule 4 process that took place in July 2010, the government made a commitment it would change the Crown Minerals Act. And changing the Crown Minerals Act, we made it clear that going forward, future mining on conservation land would be publicly notified. That law change hasn't taken place yet. In the case of Bathurst Resources, the Denniston Plateau has been as part of a historic consent. So if the member's asking me, am I going to visit companies that have historic consents? Well, to the best of my knowledge, I don't have any in my diary, but I don't really know. I'll have to go and check that if she's really that concerned. But for future companies that want to mine on the conservation estate, once the Crown Minerals Act is amended, then they will be publicly notified.
Point of order.
Point of order, Eugenie.
Sir, I seek to table a 2-minute 35-second video produced by the Royal Forest and Bird Protection Society of the landscapes, habitats and species of the Denniston Plateau.
Leavers sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is objection. Question number 7, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the